Well, I feel fortunate to be invited to speak at Republica. It was my second time. I was here in 2009. It's gotten a lot bigger since the first time around. And I think I was invited because I'm known for studying some of these very hard problems, like the problem of online propaganda, fake news, everything that's very 2017. So I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Graphika. I'm a quantitative social scientist by training, and but kind of an entrepreneur by choice. But we do keep a firm leg planted in academia, so I'm a research affiliate at the Berkman Center at Harvard, and also Graphika sells quite a bit of data to Harvard, Oxford, George Washington University, other universities that are studying these problems. So we assist and provide data for a lot of these research initiatives into fake news, propaganda, these kinds of things. Well, you know, it's interesting. This is a question we get a lot more in Germany. Why did you call the company Graphika? Because at least in the United States, people think of graph as being about the social graph or the interest graph or graph mathematics, which is more what we're doing, analyzing large-scale graphs in that sense. But I don't think it has that connotation here so much. So the reason is that we look at online social networks as a kind of cyber-social terrain. And we want to get very scientific about how you measure it, how you understand that terrain, how you map it. We call ourselves cartographers of cyber-social terrain. And Eratosthenes was the founder of geography, of the discipline. So he's someone to look to for inspiration as a person who said, hey, there's this thing that everyone does a little bit of in a kind of unstructured way, which is talk about where things are, and let's get scientific about it. Let's put down grids on the earth and measure and calculate. And that's the same spirit that we want to take into measuring 21st century cyber-social terrain. Well, you know, it's funny because my thinking on that has changed. When I first started doing it, more than 10 years ago, this large-scale analysis of online conversations, I thought, well, there's what's legitimate and what's real, which is the patterns of people actually communicating. Individual people, independent people, actual human beings. And what we're seeing now is all the manipulation, the robot, the botnets, the troll farms, all of these kinds of inorganic manipulations. And I used to see that as illegitimate and think, how do we correct for it? And now I realize, no, that's actually an impactful, very real part of the cyber-social terrain. You just have to know the difference between that and the organic stuff. I can see that argument. I guess my reaction is, it's kind of like getting an ounce of medicine for a pound of disease, right? Yeah. Because it's also bad to ruin people's respect for and belief in the integrity of the journalistic system, right? Yeah. That's generally a negative thing. Yeah. I agree that if it causes people to be more discerning and to kind of put their thinking cap on when they encounter public information, that is good. But I fear that a lot of the effects it has politically are not on the people that would be doing that discerning, right? It's going to be on the people that are not going to bother, who are more easily manipulable, and who we actually benefit by having them at least having trust in some kind of centrally, basically true journalistic stream, because otherwise they're going to go believe a lot more completely crazy things that spin them off into very dangerous little... What's going on now is not different in kind. I mean, this sort of state-sponsored propaganda was very sophisticated before the internet even. But now it's got a power to it that it didn't have before. And it helps make the problem that was already underway worse, which is the general dissolution of the central trusted journalistic institutions. I mean, and it's not just that there's information diversity and people can choose where to go to get their information. They don't have to go to the New York Times. It's also the undermining of the business model. I mean, the New York Times didn't make most of its money off of selling news. They made it off of selling, ads. And that money has gone away. So the whole system's kind of falling apart in a way that makes, it's like an environment where the, formerly dominant species are dying off and there's a space in the ecological niche for new things to come in. And not all those things are making it better. For me personally, there's kind of one, which would be Internet of Things. So we're analyzing these cyber social networks. So patterns of relationships between people that are joined by internet technologies. And now you're starting to expand that network beyond people. So connecting up machines, devices, locations. So you end up not just kind of a cyber-social human terrain, but kind of a cyber-social cyborg terrain. So that's the thing that personally has me interested. I'll tell you the most recent interesting books I've read. I just finished 1491, the story of kind of the Americas before Columbus, and now I'm reading 1493, which is right after Columbus. Really, really interesting accounts of how the modern world traces its roots back to kind of these. Even though other people were in America before Columbus, the joining of of global society that happened after that. Super interesting. And then there's a really cool, I'll put in a pitch for a book about Eratosthenes called Circumference, which talks about, he's famous for measuring the circumference of the Earth within 3% of its modern known value in 300 BC, which is a remarkable achievement. But the book details just how difficult that is, right? So how would you know the distance between Alexandria and Cyrene in 300 AD?
Right. That's some kind of God's eye view a bit.
Exactly. So it actually digs into kind of all the hard problems that were solved in order to let that fairly clean, simple idea actually be accurate. I think I'm about trying to use technology to see the world and help other people see the world in a different way, to understand 21st century networked media without forgetting the network part of it. So that's my professional and intellectual motivation. But I'd say my biggest ambition in life would be just to be a good dad.